Hey guys, Max here. I'm going to go over this eviction because this one was very particular. This one was something that was very close to having bodily injury, black eyes, and lots of bruises. I'm going to go over why this happened and how I am now making sure it never happens in the future, and how if you are renting rooms or thinking about renting rooms, why you need to ask these very two important questions because you want to avoid bodily injury and evictions as much as possible. Let's start with the story starting now. The question is your house an asset or a liability? What do you think? Would a 20% of all the dollars ever printed were printed since 2019? Experience. Reading books is great, but learning from your experience is how you do it. All right, let's call him Greg. Greg was a very, very good, pleasant roommate, pleasant tenant for, I would say, over a year, and then things started to unravel from there. Greg started drinking again. Greg started using substances to numb his problems, not to diminish those, but he had some significant problems, and he was dealing with that in the only way he knew possible, which was drinking alcohol, abusing it really. There would be times where there would be extremely loud music at midnight, and he would be singing to 80s rock music. And I'm all about 80s rock music. Believe me, I like it. AC/DC, all that good stuff. But the problem is it was at midnight, and I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which that does not bode well with sleeping patterns. So anyway, long story short, it came to a head, and there was one roommate, which was not me, and another roommate. I had two roommates at the time. And one roommate, which was Greg started beefing with the other roommate for whatever reason, because he didn't like him. He slammed the door too loud. I mean, just the most ridiculous things that did not involve Greg one bit. At one point, I was walking down the hall and realized that Greg and the other roommate were very close to one another, and what seemed to be about to be what I would call a fist fight, a backyard brawl. It was about to happen in my hallway, and I thought, oh boy, this is not going to be a good situation for anybody. So immediately I power walked, or I guess sprinted down the hall, took Greg to his room. The other roommate went to his room. The other roommate was being actually pretty cool about the whole situation. Greg was antagonizing this guy over and over and over again. And I went in Greg's room and said, Greg, what's going on? And long story short, it was the typical things you hear from someone who's addicted to a substance. He's doing this, and and I said, what exactly is he doing? There was no real story. There was no coherent reasoning behind anything. The only reasoning was pretty much, I don't like him because of. There was no reasoning. There was no logical reasoning behind it. So very, very close. Greg is still trying. As we're in the room, he's still, I'm going to go out there, and he wants to take it. It turned into a brawl. It almost turned into a brawl, which would have been very bad for everybody involved. Long story short, I was able to break it up, and let's just say my time with Greg being my roommate was very short-lived after that. And this was a tough one because I wasn't even able to say something to the nature of, hey, I'm thinking about selling the house. I'm thinking about making some changes, need to repaint the room. I appreciate you being the roommate. There was a significant, very short and quick event that made this happen. And I couldn't go incognito mode. I couldn't go clandestine and give him reasons on why he's going to have to move out. I had to tell him, hey, this happened. It's not going to happen again because you're moving out. It turned into a very, very uncomfortable time before he could find a new place. So anyway, long story short, that was the story. And why did this happen? Well, there were two questions that I should have asked Greg, and I should have only accepted the correct response. So here are the two questions I'm going to go over. All right, so I did ask this one question that was very important. Do you have the first month's rent and security deposit ready today? Now, if someone says no to that, or if someone says, I'm waiting for my next paycheck, I'm waiting for this money to come in, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that they have the money ready. Let's just say your room is $500 a month for the rent. $500, $500 security deposit, they need at least $1,000 saved up. If they don't have $1,000 saved up, that tells me they are probably financially irresponsible, which means that irresponsible behavior I may start to inherit, which is not fun for me because I don't expect anyone to pay my bills, nor should anyone expect me to pay their bills. So first question, do you have the first month's rent and security deposit today? If they don't have it ready today, simply politely say, hey, this is my standard. If you don't meet this standard, I can't have you move in with me. It's that simple. But here's the thing. Greg answered yes and was able to prove to me that he did have the money ready. So that's like when question 2 comes into effect. And I did not ask question 2 as an idiot because I was still new to this room rental situation. I definitely asked this question to everybody now. Question 2 is, tell me about your job and how long have you been there? Guess what? Greg had the money. Greg had the bank funds. Greg was able to show me money, but I never asked, tell me about your job and how long you've been there. Guess what? Greg was unemployed and on long-term government assistance. Again, I'm not knocking people on government assistance. It really is necessary for some people. Greg was really finagling the system, to say the least. He didn't really have any reason to not work besides his desire to watch Judge Judy and Fox News all day. Bad situation. The problem is I was desperate to rent the room, and let me tell you this. Whenever I've lowered my standards, whenever I've gone from, well, I'll work with you, or your situation is unique, the more and more I lower my standards, the less and less I find someone that is a good fit. Greg was a good fit. It seemed to be, but I didn't ask that really important question on, do you get out of the house and how long have you been at this certain job? He didn't get out of the house. He stayed at home 24/7. He was so bored, he would ask me if he could mow the lawn. Like, that's how bored this guy was. You want to find people who are going out of the house every single day. When you have people inside the house, it takes away the community aspect of being a human. People need other people. People need others. People need their family, their friends, people around them to keep them sane. When someone sits in the room for literally years and years and years, this guy had done previously, which he didn't tell me, and I should have asked, so shame on me. I take the full responsibility. Because he was sitting at home for years and years and years, he didn't have a lot of human contact. So how he dealt with things was, instead of dealing them as a 40-year-old man, as he should have, he was dealing with these problems as a 15-year-old would. You know, if someone looks at you wrong, you want to go fight them. That's what you do when you're 15 and you're full of testosterone and you have the emotional maturity of a child. But when you turn to a certain age, hopefully the emotional maturity goes there. But the problem is when you don't leave your house for years and years and years and don't work and not in an environment around other people, you don't get that feedback. So, very important questions. Do they have the money right? If that's great, then awesome. We can move on to question 2. Question 2 is, how about your job? They need to be out and about every single day. The more my people stay inside, the crazier they become. And let me tell you, you don't want to deal with the crazies. If you want the full 22 question list that I ask people now, yes, it is very long, very extensive. But here's the thing. If they don't answer those first 2 questions right off the bat correctly, you hang the phone up. You politely hang up on them. So that 20-minute phone call can now turn into a 1-minute phone call. You have a lot of extra time to focus on people who are qualified. 22 questions. If you go to the link in the description, maxmymoney.org/rentyourroom, I will get those over to you right this moment. Type your email, type your name, they'll get to you right now. So all in all, I need to ask better questions. And I've learned that, 5 years into it and 30 plus roommates, I've definitely figured out the right questions to ask and get that resource because those questions are gold. Every one of them gives you insight on how a person operates, how they think, how they articulate life, how they see reality. All that's really important because if you're going to share your space with someone, you really are inviting them to an intimate part. An intimate part is your home, your 4 walls you share. If you share 4 walls with somebody, they're going to see your life. It's an intimate thing to have someone move in with you. So you want to make sure that you ask the right questions and get the right person. Thankfully, I've only had to evict 2 people. One was a very easygoing situation where he'd sit on the couch with a towel on and it would be really uncomfortable for everybody. It just wasn't good, so I had to let him go. And the second one was Greg. And Greg was just the emotional maturity of a 15-year-old in a 45-year-old man's body. Yeah, that is a recipe for absolute disaster. I'm going to hear what you guys think, though. What do you think about the story? Have you had any interesting eviction stories? I hope not. Comment now. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.